Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Millennium TV News. This is Famida Islam with you. Before moving on, let's look at today's top stories. Obamacare repeal to boost 10-year U.S. deficit. Ramadan around the globe. Ending child marriage in Bangladesh and beyond. Millions of children hard work in India. And Myanmar monks fight threat to Shwedagon Pagoda. Those were the headlines, now the details. Repealing President Barack Obama's signature healthcare reform law would increase the U.S. budget deficit by $353 billion over 10 years. Congressional forecasters said on Friday more than triple the red ink compared to an estimate 3 years ago. But the Congressional Budget Office and the Joint Committee on Taxation said the deficit increase would only be $137 billion if economic feedback effects were considered, a sign of a new Republican mandate for increased use of dynamic scoring that includes economic impact of legislation. The new estimate comes as Republicans mull options for replacing the Affordable Care Act if the Supreme Court rules against the law's mechanism by the end of June. The CBO and JCT said the main positive economic effect of an Obamacare repeal would be an increase in labor supply as Americans lose health care subsidies, boosting U.S. tax revenues. The agencies previously had estimated that more people nearing retirement age would limit their work and income to obtain federal insurance subsidies. So a repeal of Obamacare's health coverage provisions would produce less direct savings than estimated previously. Overall, based on static scoring, a repeal would reduce federal outlays by $821 billion over 10 years, but this would be offset by an estimated reduction in revenues of $1.17 trillion. Ramadan begins for some 1 billion Muslims in more than 50 countries around the world. Evening prayers in Pakistan as Muslim worshippers prepare for the holy month of Ramadan. Ramadan is a month of austerity and of exercising self-restraint. It is also a month of feasting, and in Bangladesh, markets are filled with people buying in assortments of treats for iftar, the meal eaten by Muslims to break the fast. Some 1 billion Muslims in more than 50 countries around the world observe Ramadan by fasting from dawn until sunset, including China, which has around 20 million Muslims across the country. In Nepal, they assemble for prayer as the country still recovers from a series of devastating earthquakes that killed more than 8,000 people. In Italy, migrants hoping for a better life hold prayers along the Mediterranean coast. They line up for the evening meal to break their fast. They are among the many thousands who have arrived in Europe since the start of the year, fleeing violence and poverty at home, now marking Ramadan at what they hope is a better future ahead.
That killed more than 8,000 people. In Italy, migrants hoping for a better life hold prayers along the Mediterranean coast. They line up for the evening meal to break their fast. They are among the many thousands who have arrived in Europe this year, fleeing violence and poverty at home, now marking Ramadan as they hope for a better future.
This is a place affected by river erosion. Azima's parents told her, explaining why she had to marry at age 13. Azima lived with her parents on the banks of the Meghna River in Bangladesh. If the river takes our house, it will be hard for you to get married, so it's better if you get married now, they said. Families losing their land and homes to erosion in Bangladesh face being displaced and having to start over again in a new community where they are not known and are no longer landowners, meaning the marriage options for their daughters will be diminished. In anticipation of this, some families rush to get their daughters married before the erosion arrives, even if the girls are very young. In 2014, the government of Bangladesh announced its commitment to ending child marriage. At the London Girls' Summit, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina pledged to end child marriage under the age of 15 by 2021 and to end all child marriage under age 18 by 2041. If Bangladesh lives up to this commitment, it will be able to show the world how ending child marriage can lead to a more just, healthy and prosperous life for all citizens.
To report that they were not being provided for. They were simply sent back and they were told, this is your life, this is what you do. You have been married, you have to live with your husband's family. So I think that's a particularly huge problem because you have very young girls who are pregnant, who are abandoned, who are physically and sexually abused by their husbands and families, and they have no options really.
Thank you, sir. মাত্র রাত্র শ্বশুর শাশুড়ি জ্বালা যন্ত্রণা দিত, শ্বশুর শাশুড়ি পীড়িত, শ্বশুরে পীড়িত, স্বামী তাকে কথা দিটা জ্বালা যন্ত্রণা দিত, অনেক কষ্ট পায়, তারপর দিয়ে পীড়িতে মারতো, তারপরে বাপের বাড়ি চলে আসে আর কি।
Across the globe, more than 150 million children between age 5 and 14 are involved in child labor, while India is home to the highest number of working children in the world. On International Day Against Child Labor on Friday, attempts are underway to put a stop to it in India. More than 28 million children have jobs, according to UNICEF estimates. India's current child labor law prohibits children under the age of 14 from being employed in hazardous jobs. However, in May this year, rather than encouraging a complete abolition of child labor in the country, the cabinet headed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi approved only amendments to the law. We live in a country where it is very normal for a farmer's son to help the farmer after school hours for an artisan's children to learn the craft. So we don't want this form of work to be penalized as child labor. A Labour Ministry official who spoke on condition of anonymity. That's why we have clearly stated that this form of work won't be punished, he said. If a person breaks the law, the justice system is there. The Shwedagon Pagoda, a giant gold pagoda 99mm 324 feet tall, is one of Myanmar's most famous Buddhist landmarks. It is currently at the center of a campaign by monks to stop proposals for a luxury residential and retail complex close by in Myanmar's main city Yangon. The land is owned by the Burmese army, which is determined the project will go ahead. We'll take a short break to steer. US to face differences with China hard on at talks next week. Pakistan allows Save the Children to resume operation. India's Dhoni, Bangladesh Rahman fined for collision. Welcome back to Millennium TV News. The United States said it would not paper over differences between the United States and China when top officials of the world's two largest economies meet to discuss financial and political strategy in Washington next week. Daniel Russell, Assistant Secretary of State for East Asia and the Pacific, set the scene for contentious exchanges at the annual US-China Strategic and Economic Dialogue SNED by stressing that differences over the South China Sea, cybersecurity and human rights would be high on the US agenda. Speaking after revelations of massive cyber attacks on US government computers in the past 2 weeks, which US officials have blamed on Chinese hackers, Russell said cybersecurity issues would be raised throughout the talks from Monday to Wednesday in Washington. The US-China dialogue was established in 2009 as a way to maintain practical bilateral cooperation. In spite of differences, it will be chaired on the US side by Secretary of State John Kerry and Treasury Secretary Jack Lew, while China's delegation will be led by State Councillor Yang Jiechi and Vice Premier Wang Yang. Pakistan's Interior Ministry on Sunday allowed the international non-governmental organization Save the Children to resume operations days after shutting down its headquarters in Islamabad and giving staff members 15 days to leave the country. Authorities sealed the office in the capital on Thursday, accusing the organization of involvement in anti-Pakistan activities. By Friday, every office in the country was closed. At the time, a Pakistan official said, "We have been monitoring their calls and watching their offices, and their activities are very suspicious." The official did not specify what activities were objectionable. Save the Children, which has been in Pakistan for 35 years, said in a statement it has no expatriate staff in Islamabad. The charity said, "We strongly object to this action and are raising our serious concerns at the highest levels." Save the Children said, "All our work is designed and delivered in close collaboration with the government ministries across the country and aims to strengthen public service delivery systems in health, nutrition, education and child welfare." Police in Hong Kong say they have arrested 9 people on suspicion of conspiracy to manufacture explosives. The arrests come in the same week that lawmakers are due to vote on a controversial political reform plan. Police spokesman Ng Wei Hon did not make a direct connection between the arrests and the vote, but said at least one of the suspects belonged to a radical group. In April, Hong Kong's government unveiled a highly controversial proposal for selecting the city's next chief executive in 2017, which would involve candidates being vetted by a committee made up largely of pro-Beijing members. Democracy activists have said they are opposed to the proposals, and pro-democracy legislators have vowed to vote them down. Police said items seized in the raids included air rifles, a formula for making smoke grenades, face masks and maps of locations in central Hong Kong. Police said some of the substances were seized at an abandoned TV studio, with other raids taking place at suspects' houses. Pro-democracy activists, some of whom are known as localists because of their anti-Beijing stance, have distanced themselves from the alleged plot. Police said localist activists are making bombs, but I'm not sure if it's real or not. We have nothing to do with that. For presidential hopefuls in the United States, it's still early days in the race for the White House, but the campaign finance machines are all geared up for the show. Among the big donors and fundraisers are some of the Indians and Pakistani American community. They do not yet have the numbers to wield significant influence as voters in U.S. politics, but they are a highly sought-after lot when it comes to campaign cash. Many of them figure in the elite list of political donors in both congressional and presidential campaigns. So why do they fund political campaigns? What's in it for them? It's one of the world's most beautiful cities, but Sydney's sunset was twice as spectacular Wednesday when its beaches, harbour and city skyline were framed by a rare double rainbow. Social media was awash with breathtaking pictures, with the slide literally stopping traffic on the city's streets. A rainbow is a natural phenomenon formed when sunlight hits falling rain. The rain's tiny drops refract the sun's light into its individual color components and reflect it back at different angles, forming the 7 colors of the rainbow. A double rainbow happens when these rays of lights are refracted twice. Science aside, there is no arguing with these amazing pictures. Now the Millennium Sports News. India captain Mahendra Singh Dhoni and Bangladesh paceman Mustafizur Rahman have been fined for a collision during Thursday's first one-day international at Mirpur, the International Cricket Council (ICC) said. While Dhoni has been fined 75% of his match fee, Rahman, who made his ODI debut with a man-of-the-match performance, was docked half of his match earnings. The incident occurred in the 25th over of India's chase when Dhoni appeared to shove the bowler away while taking a single with the left-arm paceman in his path. The 19-year-old Rahman left the field after the incident, returning later to complete a 5-wicket haul in the match, which host Bangladesh won by 79 runs to take a 1-0 lead in the 3-match series. Both players pleaded not guilty to the charge, ICC match referee Andy Pycroft said in a statement on Friday. The second match of the series will be played on Sunday. Before wrapping up, let's have a look at Millennium TV News Recap. Obamacare repeal to boost 10-year U.S. deficit. Rare double rainbow. India's Dhoni, Bangladesh Rahman fined for collision. You are up to date with our top stories so far here on Millennium TV, and don't forget to log into www.millenniumtv.net. Thank you for staying with us. Allah.